Well, good morning. It is 9:06. I am Pamela Furr. I am happy to be here on this Wednesday. The sun is shining. The world is on fire. But all is well, right? All right, 615-737-9986 is our phone number when I open up the phone lines at some point today on the program, but you can always super text us. We do have the Super Talk TV. Did I say it right? The Super Talk TV. We have on. It's going on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch. I need to sign up for a Twitch account, I guess, so I can just check it out on Twitch because I've never actually been in the Twitch world. It reminds me of, I don't know, somebody who has a tick. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a gamers platform.
Is that what it is?
Bunch of gamers.
Yeah. Bunch of gamers over there. All right. So, good grief. I had a direction I wanted to go in at the very beginning of the show, but I got to tell you, I'm very alarmed by the news that Ken Weaver he's had in the last 45 minutes or so, that these leaked documents have shown that there are special forces in Ukraine. Is that not correct, what you've been reporting, Ken Weaver?
Well, what Fox News says is that U.S. Special Forces in Ukraine are at the embassy, and that a top official confirms it. They are quoting White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby speaking to Fox News about leaked classified documents saying the Special Forces are not fighting on the battlefield, yet they are in Ukraine, which is under attack.
Yes. So, I mean, that to me, now, if for 1 minute you ever even thought that special forces weren't on the ground in Ukraine,
well, yeah.
You know, I mean, come on. But to actually have it, I speak with my hands also, and so I hit this microphone from time to time. My apologies. But to actually have forces on the ground confirmed, yes, at the embassy. And I guess to keep people safe at the U.S. Embassy, that's why they're there. This is dangerous that this information is out. Guys, I mean, we're talking about a country that's under attack by Russia. We've helped the Ukraine country, the people of Ukraine, the forces in Ukraine, but we actually have not been helping them fight the battle with actual boots on the ground or anything like that. At least that's been the official word.
Right.
Russia is our enemy. Yes or no? I do believe that's a yes.
Well, they're not our friend.
They're certainly not our friend. Yeah, I would agree with that. And so if there's anything, any slightest little thing that Russia could use against us, I mean, I believe that Putin is a ticking time bomb. Now, I am no expert. I will not pretend to be an expert. I just have lived a long life, and I have seen when drum beats have happened, and when there just seems to be an ever-present drum beat that America will be in a war soon. Whether we're talking China or whether we're talking Russia and Iran and all of it, it just feels like the drum beat is getting louder and louder and louder. And I am 100% concerned about this. Concerned for our country that's not in the best place that it could be. Concerned about our standing in the world, which is not in the best place that it could be. I'm concerned about our military. Although you call on any soldier right now today, I think they are ready for whatever is thrown at them. Yes, but our forces could be better. I heard an interview this morning with Congressman Scott DesJarlais and Dan Mandis, and Scott talked about the concerns that he has with our military playing all the woke games that they're playing and not really focusing on military readiness, instead trying to focus on recruitment and being diverse and not necessarily getting the biggest, baddest you-know-whats recruited for our military, but being diverse and being, it's diverse. Diversity, it being inclusive and showing equitable signs in our military. And that's just ridiculous. ridiculous. You want to know why recruitment numbers are down? That's why. Because you're focused on woke issues. You want to know why recruitment numbers are down? You're focused on making sure a transgender can be in the military, as opposed to, do we have the best? Do we have the brightest? And can these men and women fight the best war? Right? To keep peace. Believe it or not, war does bring about peace. That is what we should be focused on. And we have a commander-in-chief over there in Ireland. Can somebody tell me why? To celebrate the peace between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland? What on earth? Why? What purpose is this serving to be there? So, that was not the way I intended to start this show. I wanted to talk about, and we are going to talk about, this new executive order from Governor Lee that he handed down yesterday. We are going to talk about so-called red flag laws. Do they work? Do they not work? What are the unintended consequences with this kind of legislation? We're going to talk about that. John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association will be with us at 9:35 this morning to discuss all of that. And I talked to him a little bit yesterday, but I told him, let's have the conversation organically on the air, because there's a lot of things that don't make any sense to me here. I know the cries are, do something. We have to do something about crazy people getting guns. And I know those who have mental health issues don't like being called crazy. I understand that. I'm trying to just not be so woke today and just get down to the heart of it. When there's an imbalance in your brain, it can make you crazy. I'm speaking that with my hand raised. I've had anxiety issues my whole life. Trust me, I can get a little crazy when I'm not doing the right things that I'm supposed to be doing, et cetera, et cetera. I can get a little obsessive compulsive. I would venture to say more than 50% of our population right now has anxiety issues. I also think more than 50% of our population right now is probably on some sort of medication for anxiety or depression. That doesn't mean that they're going to go out and get a gun and shoot up whatever, whether it's a bank, a grocery store, a bus station, a school, whatever the case may be. But how do you differentiate between the ones that are just being treated for some imbalances and whatnot, and the ones that are actually simply contemplating what would happen if? What would happen if? I think you'll find when you're talking about those who have decided to pick up a gun and start shooting, they know what the outcome will be. They know that they're not going home. So the heart, I think, of that matter is they don't want to be here on this earth anymore, but they don't have the courage to end it themselves. And I know that sounds harsh. People say you're a coward if you commit suicide. I'm going to disagree with you. You're delusional. You're believing the lies you're telling yourself that you do not belong in this world. But it takes a lot of guts to end it. But it's based on delusion. But it's not easy. So that's why there are people who have now turned to going out with a bang and suicide by cop. They know a cop will shoot them if they're shooting other people. They're not thinking about the carnage. They're not thinking about the families that are devastated. They're not thinking about the communities that are devastated from these actions. All they are thinking about is ending it. Some think about revenge. So there's a whole little line. But so how do you differentiate those from those who need medication so they don't worry all the time, or those who need medication because they're depressed and they're trying to get out of this funk that they seem to be living in and can't get out of bed? They don't want to end it, but they don't want to live either. So they're just stuck. How do you differentiate those? How do you differentiate between the person who likes to use law enforcement to settle disagreements? How do you differentiate between people who like to pick up the phone and call, my boyfriend's got a gun. My boyfriend's got a gun. Get out here. And the boyfriend is sitting in his house watching football, doing nothing. How do you differentiate between those people? Have you ever spoken to law enforcement who will tell you that most of their calls that they deal with every day are people who are using them to settle an argument and wasting their time? He hit me, when he didn't do a thing. But they have to arrest him because that's the accusation, and now you have to go through all of this, and none of it was ever true. So how are you going to differentiate all of that by making it easier for people who aren't involved domestically to pick up the phone and go, hey, this guy has been threatening me, and I know he owns guns. You got to do something. Police go to their home, confiscate guns, and due process happens, which due process isn't exactly quick process. So you have an innocent person who doesn't have his weapons, who purchased them legally, and he rightfully owns them, but because a scorned person, female or otherwise, whatever, decided they wanted to get revenge on their neighbor, their brother, not involved in any kind of domestic relationship, so it's not called domestic violence or it's not that category. It's now this new category. How are you going to differentiate? This is a dangerous, I think, area that we're in. Do you know what an ex parte order of protection is? I think I'm describing this properly. Someone could go to the county sheriff or the magistrate's office and say, and I'm going to use Mac, I'm going to use you as an example. Mac has never threatened me. For the record, he's never threatened to hurt me or my children. I don't have children. Or, my home, my property, nothing like that. But I'm going to use him as an example. See, Mac, I have to say that sometimes because people listen it kind of in and out sometimes.
Of course. They're like, wait, what?
Yes, correct. So if I could go to the magistrate's office right now or the county sheriff's office, whatever county you may be living in, and I could say, come in with tears. Oh, my God. Maybe slap myself in the face a little bit, make it a little red. My coworker, Mac Morey, he is out of control, and I am scared. I am so scared. What seems to be the problem, ma'am? He has threatened me. He slapped me, and then I know he owns guns, and I am scared. He says one of these days after work, I'm going to be walking out of the building, and he's going to get me. I need an order of protection right away. And so if they determine that my life may be in danger, now you're not there to defend yourself, right? They can order an ex parte, which means only one party, an ex parte order of protection. And once that order of protection is issued, if this is a domestic thing, they can then go to your house, hand you the order of protection and say, you have to stay away from Pamela for however long, 6 months, a year, whatever and do you own any guns? Well, yes, I do. We need your guns. What? And you've done nothing.
Wow.
Now, if you have convinced a magistrate or a county clerk or a sheriff's deputy that you are really in danger, if you're really good at it. Now, how do I know this? Because it's happened to me.
Wow.
It's happened to me. I
Someone
explained
was convincing them that you were.
that I was sitting in. Now this has been 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
That I was a friend, someone I thought was a friend, ended up sleeping with a guy that I thought I was dating. Right. So my girlfriend started sleeping with my boyfriend. Anyway, I also thought it was my First Amendment right to tell him off, but that's another story. So I lived in Atlanta at the time. So I happened to be visiting here. So all of my stuff is at her house. Well, then she locks me out of her house. Well, I have to get my stuff. So I'm waiting in the driveway for her to get home from work so I can get my stuff.
Yeah.
Right. She calls the police and says, Pamela's in the driveway. She has a gun. I'm afraid I can't go to my house because she has a gun.
Oh, my God.
I didn't own any weapons at the time. So, the police show up and going, whoa, 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 whoa. There's no guns here. Look in my car. I have no gun. I just want my stuff. And then eventually there was an ex parte order of protection. And now this is on my record. I'm going, wait, I didn't even have an opportunity to say, what are you talking about? I didn't have an opportunity to defend myself. It was a mess. It was a complete mess. And it was all because she was upset with me because she got caught sleeping with the guy that I thought I was sleeping with. Anyway. I mean, dating. I'm sorry, that sounded so awful. Anyway, 922. What I'm saying is I've lived through it, and it can be ugly. Now, all that's in the past, and it doesn't matter anymore. But my point is, if you're going to make it easier, yes, to get the bad people separated from weapons, I think you're also going to end up, the unintended consequences will be good people may end up being separated from their weapons. More to come.
Fox News has uncovered some information from those leaked military documents that the National Security Advisor is answering to. We've got that, and then the latest inflation report at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. I am looking at the television set right now. Oh, my gosh, is that an outdated term or what? Television set.
I was getting ready to say, are you on the divan?
The divan? I don't know what that one is. What is that?
That was couch in Oklahoma.
Oh, divan. All
Yeah.
right. Sofa. Well, I'm looking at the TV right now and actually the monitor. And the president apparently has now landed in Dublin. And I am 100% jealous of him right now. Dublin is a great city. But there he is. He's shaking hands with different people, dignitaries, and whatnot. It looks like it's raining, but it's always raining in Ireland.
Yeah, it's always raining there.
It's always about 43 degrees and rain. It's very seldom sunny there. I've learned that from my 2 trips. But at any rate, so I'm watching that on CNN right at this moment. He doesn't look to be saying anything important, but that's normal. Okay, I didn't say that. I'm sorry.
Can't see him through that fella's head.
Yes. And you
Who
see
is that guy?
He's got to be a county mayor, because county mayors there wear this decorative thing.
Yeah.
So he must be the county, whatever the county of Dublin is. He must be the dignitary from the county.
Must be.
That's the only thing I can think of. And that's my limited knowledge on Ireland.
Yeah.
Don't ask me any other questions except for where is the Guinness plant. Okay. 9:30. When we come back, we're going to talk to John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association. And I'm going to ask him some of these questions regarding what's happening now with this executive order and then with legislation that the governor wants to see happen at the state capitol that's some are calling red flag laws. Is that what this is? What are we? I know we have to do something and we have to do it now, but we are witnessing reactionary behavior from our state government and not thinking things through. We'll talk about that too later with the State House, but not thinking things through, and then you have to go back and fix the mess that you've created. I hope that's not what's happening here with these executive orders and with legislation that the governor wants to see. So we're going to talk to John Harris about that. Coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Construction underway on 24 eastbound in Murfreesboro. The delay is 14 minutes so far, only one lane open. It starts right there just south of Murfreesboro at Church Street. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Fox News says White House National Security Advisor John Kirby confirms what leaked military documents show. There are U.S. Special Forces on the ground at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, but Kirby says they're not there to fight Russia. Instead, they are there to help work on accountability of the material, he says, going in and out of Ukraine. Inflation headed in the right direction. However,
some of the biggest price increases over the past year have been in airfares, up 18%, electricity up 10%, groceries and rent also higher, especially for some of those staples like milk, cereal, and butter. Now gas prices, though, are ticking up again after months of relief.
That's Elizabeth Schulze reporting. And the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, oh, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN 938. I am Pamela Furr. Glad to have you on board today. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's going to be a gorgeous day out there. I'm so jealous, but at least at 12 o'clock, I get to go back outside and see the sunshine, get some vitamin D in my body. So let's talk about guns, shall we? Now, the whole reason why any of this has come up is because of what happened at Covenant School. We've kind of, I think, in this state have lost focus of that. And it's unfortunate. But the governor yesterday decided that he wanted to issue an executive order aimed at strengthening background checks for firearm purchases. He's also calling for lawmakers to pass an order of protection law to keep guns away from people who present a danger to themselves or others. Right now, I think the order of protection law that's on the books is in the case of domestic violence or domestic cases where you're involved with that person, where you live with them, involved romantically, whatever the case may be. So according to Governor Lee, he said, I'm asking the General Assembly to bring forward an order of protection law that will provide the broader population cover safety from those who are a danger to themselves or the population. So I wanted to, that concerns me. And in the last segment, I told you exactly why. This segment, I wanted to bring on John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association to have a conversation about my concerns, and I'm sure some concerns of others. In fact, I've got a statement here from a member of the, what are they called? Libertarian Party, saying that they do not think that an order of protection law, a new one, a stiffer one, is going to do what Governor Lee thinks it's going to do. John Harris, what do you think?
Well, I do not think what he's proposing is really an improvement or a change in order of protection. What Governor Lee has proposed, regardless of how he mischaracterizes its category, is quite simply what's more commonly referred to as a red flag law or an extreme risk protection order.
Mm-hmm. And what would that do? And has it worked? I mean, this is what you do for a living, right? With the Tennessee Firearms Association. Has it worked in any other state where they've passed this kind of legislation?
Well, there's a number of states, somewhere around 20, maybe 20 to 22 at this point, that have passed these kinds of laws. In almost all instances, they're either passed by progressive states that are run by Democrats, or they're passed in a knee-jerk response to some incident. But the fact is that courts, having looked at these things in retrospect, find that in a substantial number of cases, the orders never should have been issued in the first place, that they improperly were issued by the court. There wasn't adequate evidence to suggest that they could be issued by the court. And in fact, since last summer, there have been two cases that I'm aware of out of New York State following the Supreme Court's Bruin decision last year that have held that New York State's red flag laws are unconstitutional to the extent they infringe on Second Amendment rights under the standards that have now been imposed by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Interesting. And see, that's my problem with this. You know, I gave my own personal experience with someone who just wanted to cause me problems. But I think the unintended consequences, yes, the governor's heart is in the right place, but the unintended consequences are good people who just want their weapons to protect somebody are going to end up in court having to fight for their right to keep their weapons.
Well, that's true, and I'll give you, for example, I mean, you were correct when you said earlier that I'm involved with and serve as the executive director for the Tennessee Firearms Association, but that's a volunteer position that I hold. Mm-hmm. You know, as you're aware, I've been a practicing attorney in Nashville now since 1986. 37 years. And so I have seen these cases go through the court system. And Orders of protection, you're correct, as they currently exist in Tennessee, typically require that the relationship between the individuals either be that of, well, let's just say domestic. That they have to have some type of relationship, either husband, wife, spouse, parent, live-in, dating. There's got to be some type of domestic relationship, and unfortunately, those types of orders have frequently been used in domestic proceedings as a tool to take unfair advantage of one spouse or the other. Because they know it results in almost immediately a seizure order of firearms.
Right.
And if you're a police officer or security guard and all of a sudden your ability to earn a living is impacted because some court wrongfully issued an order of protection, you got a serious problem.
And it takes time and it takes money to get that adjudicated. And, well, anyway, like you said, you've got police officers, security guards, you got other people who this is what they do for a living, and that has caused a problem. And then you just have innocent people who now have to spend money to defend themselves, and that's just the domestic cases. Now, if you're broadening that to include anybody, you're going to have police officers dealing with stupid cases. They complain about the ones they have to deal with now that are just people trying to solve arguments and solve problems, not true domestic violence cases. Those kind of get lost in the shuffle sometimes. So now you've expanded it, and personally, I think unintended consequences here. Now, let me ask you a question, though. What do you think about the executive order that he passed saying that he wants it to be quicker and faster, that court information actually get to the TBI? I believe that's how the executive order states, that if there is court information where you have a mentally unstable person, I guess, that has been in some trouble, or there's been a report, that it gets to TBI faster, so that when background checks happen, they have that information. What do you think about the executive order?
The executive order is, I've read it, it's not particularly clear on exactly what categories of information he's referring to. Mm-hmm. He does clearly state that he wants whatever that information is reported from the gathering agency, say a court clerk, and reported to TBI or the state database that he's referencing within 72 hours. And maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, because you've got weekends, you've got 4-day holidays, you've got a lot of things that might interfere with that. But let's assume all he's really doing is he's setting a deadline by which he wants relevant information added to the database.
Right.
There's another component of his executive order, though, that gave me pause, where he talked about orders concerning mental health. Mm-hmm. And that one is a little troubling because I'm not sure specifically what he's talking about. And the reason is the Gun Control Act, the 68 Federal Act that we operate under, and Tennessee operates by reference under the Federal Act, doesn't make all mental health situations disqualifying. So, for example, people can have depression as a result of the death of a spouse, a child, a close friend, and that could be classified as an acute mental health event, but one that you're likely going to overcome within a brief period of time. You could have the same thing because you didn't get the birthday present you wanted, or you didn't something else didn't go your way, or you could have other types of mental health circumstances that don't rise to the level that federal law currently says is disqualifying. And because federal law says not that you've got a mental health condition, federal law says you've got to be a mental defective. And typically mental defective, as applied under that statute in the cases that have looked at it, is that you have for example, a mental health condition that you've had since birth
Right.
that is severe enough that you just can't function in society.
Right.
So the law is extreme in terms of its spectrum when it talks about mental health, but the Gun Control Act is very limited that there's only certain categories of mental health issues. And so if we look at the Covenant shooter, for example, we don't know what mental or emotional health issues she was being treated for. Given what she did for a living and her life experiences and what we do know about her, it doesn't appear that she was mentally defective.
Right.
She may have had a mental health issue, but she would not necessarily fall within the mental defective category.
And my understanding too, John, is that, mental health providers, the counselors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, don't have to, quote, turn anybody in unless they are presenting as a danger to themselves or others. Then at that point, am I right? By law, they then have to contact law enforcement, do they not?
Typically, yes, and that's because we have a set of statutes in Tennessee that deal with, well, they start off with the concept of emergency involuntary committals, and that's a situation where a qualified mental health, usually a doctor, but it could be some people that are specially trained in the mental health field, assess an individual. Usually it requires 2 independent assessments, and those medical professionals have to sign statements saying that they've evaluated the person, that they have a mental health or an emotional health issue, and that as a result of that specific mental health or emotional health issue, which they have to state clearly what it is, that the person poses an immediate risk of harm to themselves or others.
Right.
So you can have people who have mental health treatment, emotional health treatment, that maybe even are severely depressed or outside the spectrum of what we consider normal, but that don't create that risk
Right.
that would trigger the emergency reporting.
The emergency reporting. Interesting. John, I've run out of time. I always love talking to you. It sounds like to me that we should all be concerned and say to the governor and to our legislature, hold on, let's not be knee-jerk here with this situation just because people are demanding do something now, and not look at the consequences that could happen if you pass this so-called order of protection law. That's what it sounds like you're saying. Yes?
You're exactly right. Knee-jerk is a great way to put it.
Yeah. All right. John, thank you so much. If people want to find out more about the Tennessee Firearms Association, you've got a website, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do, absolutely. TennesseeFirearms.com, all spelled out.
Perfect. Thank you, John Harris. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, it is 9:51. Got to take this break. We'll be back in a moment. I'll tell you what the Libertarian Party has to say about the governor's executive order. Coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, one-lane traffic in Rutherford County due to construction there on eastbound 24 in Murfreesboro. U.S. Special Forces are on the ground in Ukraine. We'll tell you how we got that information coming up at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. Hey, do I have you just a second?
I'm here, Sister Pamela Furr.
All right, you and I started talking about this a little bit earlier. By the way, good to see you.
You too, Sister Pamela Furr.
1923.
Yes.
That series.
Yeah.
Okay. For all you Yellowstone folks. Now, I love Yellowstone. I mean, Kevin Costner is awesome. You got Rip Wheeler. Holy smokes. You've got Beth Dutton. You've got all of that. But they seem to have, the last season, jumped the shark a little bit. It's like, okay, I don't want to see another rodeo, and some country song playing behind it. I need some dialogue. I need something gripping here. That's the way I have felt the last season. Well, then I watched, 1883?
Yeah.
Which was great with Faith Hill and Tim McGraw. Holy smokes, Tim McGraw was they were all fantastic. But 1923, Harrison Ford and what's her face?
Helen Mirren.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I think it's better than all of it.
I agree. And these prequels make you appreciate Yellowstone even more.
Yes. And the land and why they fight for it.
What's it on? Where can I?
Paramount.
Paramount. Okay.
Yeah, you
Gotcha.
got to see it. Now, if you haven't seen Yellowstone, watch that first. I think you should do it kind of in order. Anyway, all right, more to come. Let's talk about knee-jerk reactions from state legislatures, shall we? That's after the news at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Ten o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And if you think the last 3 days have been nice, just wait for the rest of the day today. And then comes tomorrow. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. U.S. Special Forces are on the ground in Ukraine, but National Security Advisor John Kirby telling Fox News they're not there to fight Russia. Kirby says those special forces are there to help account for all of the material he says is going in and out of Ukraine. Kirby's confirmation comes after Fox News says the information was in some of the documents from the Pentagon leaked onto the internet. Money News, the latest readout on consumer prices shows that inflation is on the way down. Prices were 5% higher in March compared to a year ago. That's lower than February when it was 6%. But Elizabeth Schulze says gasoline prices have started inching up again.
After major oil-producing countries announced a surprise cut to oil supply, the national average this morning is $3.62. That's up 9 cents from just a week ago. Though important to remember as we're heading into the busy summer driving season, prices are still lower than they were at this time last year when they were above $4 a gallon, approaching those historic highs.
Later today in Tennessee, the Board of Commission in Shelby County set to vote around 1:30 to fill the state house seat of Justin Pearson, one of two lawmakers kicked out of the legislature for breaking decorum by leading a bullhorn rally against guns on the House floor. Fellow ousted Democrat Justin Jones of Nashville has been reappointed to his 52nd district seat. Since the expulsions, Tennessee's Republican-led House of Representatives has been cast as racist in the national media. Now there's pending litigation, which Speaker of the House, Tennessee's Cameron Sexton, says he prevents him from discussing publicly, other than to say it comes from Obama-era Attorney General Eric Holder.
There was a letter that was sent. I haven't read it yet. I know the AG have it and is aware of it. That letter came in, I think, after the fact. But anyway, after the expulsion sometime this week. I don't know the exact time that we got it. But Representative Jones is represented by Eric Holder as his attorney.
Tennessee Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton there on the drive with Brian Wilson here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Good morning, Nashville and surrounding counties, Middle Tennessee. Hello, I'm Pamela Furr. Glad to be with you today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. We may open up the phone lines a little later on in the program. I'll be here till noon. Matt Murphy in at noon, and then the drive with Brian Wilson later on at 3 o'clock today. Brian Wilson, by the way, had an opportunity and spoke with the House Speaker Cameron Sexton, the State House Speaker. That was a very interesting interview. If you get an opportunity to listen to the podcast, I encourage you to do so. And I'm going to play some of that audio here on the show, too, because I got to tell you something. For Sister Pamela, sitting back and watching everything that has happened in the last couple of weeks. By the way, I think we're on day 16 that we have not seen the manifesto from the Covenant school shooter. I'm not sure what the delay is at this point. I just wanted to point that out because I think if we got a look at, and lawmakers had an opportunity to look at the manifesto, same with Governor Bill Lee and other leaders, maybe then when we look at it, when we study it, when we talk to others who have been involved in that woman's life, maybe we can figure out some laws to pass that could have prevented her from getting those weapons that she had. Instead of knee-jerk, actually study and figure out what to do. Because I think in the last couple of weeks, we've seen nothing but knee-jerk. Whole lot of knees jerking all over the place. It looks like a Pentecostal Sunday with knee jerking everywhere from everybody, including lawmakers that I like, including lawmakers that I support. Because you have people yelling, do something now, do something now, and they get you riled up and you have to do something. Oh my gosh, I got to do something now. And you throw some things together and it ends up not being the best decision. You also had activities that happened on the House floor that were all knee-jerk, all reactionary, and the response, in my opinion, now that we have a little bit of hindsight, was knee-jerk in response. And decisions were made that ended up being boneheaded decisions by our lawmakers and by our leaders. No offense. Of course, how can you not be offended when I just called you a bonehead? It may have been a dumb thing to say. No offense. With all due respect and whatnot. So let's deal with the situation at hand. As you well know, Governor Lee announced yesterday that he's handing down an executive order. Here's some of what he had to say.
It is important that we find a way to remove. We'll say today we can all agree that it is possible and it is important that we find a way to remove individuals who are a threat to themselves or to our society, to remove them from access to weapons. I'm asking the legislature to bring forth thoughtful, practical measures to do that, to strengthen our laws to separate those dangerous people from firearms, while at the same time preserving the constitutional rights of the people of this state.
All right. That was pretty broad, pretty blanket thing to say. I don't disagree with him at all. We need to do something. But what is the answer? What is the answer? Should we prohibit individuals taking certain types of drugs from owning weapons? And look, here's the next question. These guns were purchased legally. I don't know that it's that difficult to illegally get a weapon. I don't know that it's that difficult. So even if you pass these laws, if you're talking about people hell-bent on hurting others and or suicide by cop or whatnot, they'll find a way. Now, maybe, just maybe, if we make it less easy from a legal standpoint, then those who are looking to die, but die by cop, may change their mind because it's not as easy. I'm just throwing things out there. I don't have the solution. I wish I did. The Libertarian Party has come out with a statement about the governor's executive order. We at the Libertarian Party of Tennessee are appalled by Bill Lee's new executive order, in which he calls order of protection law. Though he thinks that his heart is in the right place, we already know that these new laws will be abused and will deprive Tennesseans of their constitutional right to due process and is a Trojan horse to gun confiscation in the future. Now, I think this order of protection law, though, I don't know that part was the executive order. Libertarian Party, I ask you to double check on that. His part was the reporting in a timely manner, things that happen in the court to the TBI was the executive order part. The Libertarian Party of Tennessee has been and will continue to be the only party that respects the Second Amendment and due process. Well, I don't know about that. We can only hope that the Supreme Court will strike down this violation of the Constitution. We will not rest until all Tennesseans have the right to bear arms without the government abusing their power and depriving their citizens of their rights without due process. Shame on you, Bill Lee, and shame on you, Republican Party. So that is the strong, strong statement from Dave Benner. Well, he's the one that released it. It's from the party itself. Then it goes on to say the Libertarian Party of Tennessee believes the power to America's political problems is the same commitment to freedom that earned America its greatness, a free market economy and the abundance and prosperity it brings, a dedication to civil liberties and personal freedom, and a foreign policy of non-intervention, peace, and free trade. I mean, I can get behind that. I probably lean a little more libertarian than I do Republican on some things, and then there are those that say I lean a little more Democratic or liberal on some things. I think I would like to have the party of the mind your own business party. Mind your business party. There you go. You live your life, I'll live mine. Do things that make you happy within certain, boundaries, of course. And I'll do things that make me happy within certain boundaries, of course. You're free to worship whatever God you want to, and I am the same. If I want to share that with you, I can share it. And if you want to share your religion with me, share it. Feel free. And if I don't want to listen, I can plug my ears and go la, 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 la. Same goes for you. Freedom. But when you start to prevent me from worshiping the way I want to and prospering the way that I should or could, when you start taking away my rights, whether you're the government, local, state, federal, that's when I start to get concerned. So I have a red flag when it comes to these red flag laws. I would encourage the governor and lawmakers to sit down and talk to law enforcement. The boots on the ground, and ask them what they think about this idea. You have an overworked and underpaid police force in Nashville. and certainly in surrounding counties. And this could cause more work because people are going to try to abuse the system. Now, as you're looking at the possibility of making this order of protection law more broad, maybe also think about consequences if someone uses and abuses those laws for their own benefit. And it ends up being not true. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what happens right now, you decide to abuse the law and you turn in your friend or your girlfriend and say, or boyfriend, and say they did something and they didn't do it, and you turn them in anyway, and then you go through the courts and all. There are supposed to be laws on the books that they should be charged, but they never get charged. So I say stiffen the penalties for those who abuse order of protection laws, especially if you're talking about a false accusation that ends up separating that individual from their Second Amendment right to possess a firearm. Stiffen the penalty. It's not just a misdemeanor, it's a felony. I mean, I don't know, I'm throwing things out here. A state felony. You have to pay a bunch of money or you have to do time in jail for doing something like that. Because you, in your words, your actions, you filing a complaint and police go out and confiscate weapons from an innocent guy, you have now deprived him of his Second Amendment right. There should be stiff consequences for that, in my opinion. So lawmakers, as you're talking about all of this, and you're debating all of this, don't be knee-jerk. Talk about it seriously. Study it. Maybe add that to it. All right, we need to take a break here. When we come back, let's talk a little Cameron Sexton, shall we? Let's talk about the knee-jerk reaction House lawmakers participated in when it came to Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson, two Justins and a Johnson. Let's talk about that when we come back on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Military document leak reveals news about U.S. Special Forces, and the other expelled Tennessee State House rep will lead a march today in Memphis. These stories are more at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Another march?
Another march.
When are they supposed to vote? And you probably already said this, and I just didn't mark it down in my brain. Are they supposed to vote today around 1 or 1:30 in Memphis for Justin Pearson?
I believe that the meeting will be convened at 1:30.
Gotcha. Who knows when the vote will take
Right.
place? Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. I appreciate it. It is 10:21. By the way, I'm getting lots of people reacting to my new party idea of the Mind Your Business party.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, man, sign me up for that one.
The NYB, I'm in.
NYB, yes.
And the official song will be from Bocephus. Remember that he did with Reba McEntire and Tom Petty?
Yeah, mind your own business, then you won't be minding mine.
Yes.
That was originally recorded by his father.
Oh, really?
Yes, Hank Williams, mind your own business.
So Senior came up with it before Junior. Man, I loved that song.
It's a great song.
Yes.
And the fact that I actually know that song, I think you should be impressed.
I am
All
impressed.
right, thank you. I'm looking to score some points. Any points I can get,
Hey.
I'll try to score.
Well, if it has to do with Bocephus, you're definitely going to score some points with me.
Absolutely. All right, so there you
This
go.
it?
Here we go. Yeah, turn it up.
I've never heard this, so.
Mind your own business. 'Cause if you mind your business, then you won't be minding mine.
Oh, yeah.
Kids dancing back there.
Mind your own business. Mind your own business. Mind your own business, and you won't be minding mine. All right, that's enough. I can
Wow, that's
listen to
good.
that all day.
I love that.
Some country swing kind of thing
Yes.
happening here on WTN. All right. Enough of that. But yes, Mind Your Own Business party, I think, would be a great party. Just you stay over there, I'm going to stay over here, and life will be fine. Just leave me alone. Mind your business. Now, let's get into Cameron Sexton. I have to be honest with you. This whole thing with Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson has been a fiasco, right? Now that we have a little bit of hindsight, what a cluster, insert curse word here. It's been embarrassing. The whole thing embarrassing. And now the narrative is if you are a Tennessean and you're white, you're a freaking racist. And that's a lie. That's just not true. But yet somehow or another, we have just handed the narrative right on over. And I haven't heard anybody push back much on that. And that bothers me a lot. I mean, anybody who has the power to push back. We, of course, here at WTN have been pushing back all along. When the 3 lawmakers took to the House floor with a bullhorn, 2 of them with a bullhorn, the other standing by, riding on the coattails. When that happened, I just remember being in shock. Is this really happening in the state of Tennessee? Are they really taking over the House of Representatives? Is this happening? And obviously it was. And then you had lawmakers scrambling to figure out, all right, what do we do next? Because at this point, anything you do plays into the narrative. Justin Jones and Justin Pearson have been quite brilliant in all of this. Let's just be honest. And so after taking over the House floor, if you had them removed by state troopers, that would have been the headline. That would have been the photo. That would have been hindsight now. Personally, I think if you would have just said, all right, house is adjourned. We're turning out the lights. We're going home. We'll be back tomorrow. If you'd have done that and then had troopers go, okay, it's over. Go back outside. We're closing the doors. Or what, perhaps that would have been a better move than take a little bit of the passion. Let's calm it down a little bit. Start over the next day. Don't know. Hindsight, right? Monday morning quarterbacking here. But what I never understood, because there were some lawmakers who believed that if they voted for expulsion, they thought that was it. They couldn't come back. So I picked up the phone and called a lot. I can show you the numbers. I'm not going to show you the numbers, but I could have asked. In a court of law, I can show you. I never delete a darn thing off my phone. So I started making calls. And I was being told, no, if they're expelled, they stay expelled. They can't come back. So I would go with that. Hey, I'm being told by lawmakers that this is the case. I then called the Speaker of the House's office. I didn't talk to the Speaker personally, but I spoke to one of his people. And he said, the truth is, we don't know. So we're looking at this. We're looking to see, and this was on a Friday, after they had already said there is a motion to expel. We will hear the motion on X day. My question is, if you didn't know, why did you keep moving forward? Because I know what Cameron Sexton said to Brian Wilson, and we're going to play some of that audio at 10:35. I don't have time right at this second. I know what his excuses are, and I'm sorry, with all due respect, I'm going to have to call them excuses. But good grief. If you're expelling them, the punishment should be you're gone. That's it. Goodbye. And you can't come back. Instead, it became a circus. It's going to be a circus today in Memphis. And then you're going to have Justin Pearson hit the House floor with his arms raised as victorious, just like Justin Jones did. And it made me want to vomit. The optics are terrible. And at this point, the optics are the House Speaker doesn't control his House. He's not exactly in charge. And it seems chaotic. And it seems knee-jerk without looking at what the consequences could be if you make certain decisions. What I know about narcissists and people who are vanity, if you ignore them, then it doesn't feed the beast. Or if you let them have their say and then go, okay, thank you, and then move on, you take that sting out. You're not feeding the beast of ego and vanity and narcissism and all of that. That's not what happened. And the beast now is huge, I tell you. All right, so we'll play some of that audio. Brian Wilson spoke to Cameron Sexton yesterday afternoon after blasting him for this fiasco. And I'll let you hear what the speaker had to say about that when we come back. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got that construction slowing things down in Murfreesboro, 24 eastbound down to one lane. U.S. Special Forces are at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, according to military secret documents leaked to the internet. But National Security Advisor John Kirby telling Fox News not to fight Russia. Those special forces are there to account for materials going in and out of Ukraine. Expelled Tennessee House member Justin Pearson says there will be a march today in Memphis where the Shelby County Commission takes up whether to reappoint Pearson until the special election. And more than 2,000 residents still evacuated in the Indiana town of Richmond, about 60 miles east of Indy, where a large fire that broke out at a plant that mostly recycles plastics still not under control. This is EPA Representative Jason Sewell.
Fortunately, the toxic compounds that we're looking for, we're not seeing. But everyone needs to keep in mind that smoke is harmful.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 10:36. I am Pamela Furr. Thank you for being with us today. On this April the 12th, when's Mother's Day? It's in May.
Yeah, it is. Let me see.
May
It's a
something
good-
or
I need
another.
to know that.
I would tell you, but I celebrate it all year.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It's a Sunday.
It's always a
Or,
Sunday.
Sunday, May 14th.
May 4th. Oh, so a month from 2 days from now.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks for
Month
telling me
from
what
this
I
Sunday.
already know, Mac.
All right, boys. All right, so let's get into Cameron Sexton. Now, he's being criticized for the way that he has handled this whole thing that happened in the House of Representatives, where they ousted 2 members, kept 1, and now that there's 1 back, another's going to be voted on today in Memphis to send him back to the House of Representatives. Now, it's my understanding, and please, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong on this, now they're just appointed lawmakers.
Yes.
There still has to be a special election to reelect them to then serve out the rest of the term, which at this point would be like a year and a half.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I've got that right. Do you see how crazy this is? Good Lord. So it is ridiculous to me to think that you would oust somebody when you knew doggone well they would come back. And I know they were looking for ways to keep them out, couldn't find it. So, I mean, I would have allowed or encouraged the lawmakers who proposed the bill to oust them to retract that motion and think of something else to punish them if you knew they were going to be sent right back. Now, I know there's also discussion that you can't oust them again if they take to the floor with a bullhorn. You can't oust them for the same infraction. I'm going to use that term. I don't know that that's true because the infraction was, what, a week or 2 ago? If you take a bullhorn again to the floor and take over House proceedings, isn't that a different incident? So I would think that you could oust them for a brand new incident, but why do that if you are going to oust them and then they can just come right back? I mean, we would be in this vicious circle at this point. What I don't understand, I really do not understand, part of Gloria Johnson's, quote, punishment, because she's been in the House for a little bit of time, they removed her from committees. They removed her from the committees that she was sitting on. They gave her back her committee positions. So what for? Why? If you're trying to punish her for her actions, what did you give those committee positions back to her for? I have some other questions, but first I want to play some audio for you. Brian Wilson talked to Speaker Cameron Sexton yesterday on the drive. And the very first question, and it's the question we've been asking, this is what we've been talking about this morning. The question was, why did you expel these 2 if you knew that they would simply be allowed right back by Metro Council and, of course, by the Shelby County Commission later on today?
The first question you have to ask yourself is the 2 things that we have as a body, censorship or expulsion, what did their actions make you think the consequence should be? And then you have to go down that road. The body felt like that their actions on the House floor rose to the level of expulsion. And so that's the decision that the body made. But I don't think that you would want us to make a decision based on what may or may not happen after that. It should be based on what you think the consequences are and what level you thought it rose to, and make a determination based on that, because we're having to set a precedent.
All right. I understand what he's saying, and he says that the lawmakers, that the body thought the punishment should be expulsion. But I go back and tell you, some of the lawmakers that I spoke to on the phone, on, as they say in the biz, on background, said they believed that the expulsion meant gone and would not be allowed to return. So I understand what Cameron Sexton is saying, that you want to set precedents, you don't want to, all the words that he said, but it just doesn't make any sense. And I would think, again, if you're talking about a punishment and a consequence, expulsion for most people means you're not coming back. You're out. You're done. Most people, you and I, really didn't think that this was actually the case, that they could actually come back. And when words started trickling and people started doing research, wait a minute, they could come back? You mean Metro could vote to send them back? And Metro was going to do that. They're at odds with the state as it is. It's a fight between the state and the city council right now. So you knew that is what they were going to do. If anything, just whether they believed Justin Jones was the right man for the job or not, they were going to do it out of spite. You cannot tell me otherwise. It's a circus. You can't tell me that you shouldn't look at what these actions would mean beyond the day the gavel is hit on the podium. Of course you have to think of those consequences. You have to look at the big picture. Of course you do, Speaker Sexton. I disagree with that thinking wholeheartedly, with all due respect. Brian then asked, did you consider the reaction to your actions? Sexton says they had to do what's right. Regardless of all that, of all the chaos, they're on the House floor.
So if you're looking at, some representatives may have and said, well, they're just going to come back, so I'm not going to expel them. In my mind, that's not the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is to say, what level of offense does this come to? What are our options? Where do we need to set it? They were going to use any vote that you had to do whatever they wanted, whether it was a censure, whether it's an expulsion, whether it was whatever. And then the secondary problem is then they would potentially increase their action on the House floor, because that level didn't get to a level of expulsion. So what would happen to get to that level again? Do it a second time? Yeah. Do it more than?
But, okay, for me, though, Speaker Sexton, they can get on the floor now and grab a bullhorn. Your punishment is not going to stop them from doing it again, because the expulsion meant nothing. The expulsion meant a day of press for them. Expulsion for them meant martyrdom. Expulsion for them meant a bigger profile nationally. And yet they're right back out on the floor, or will be. The only people who won here were Johnson, Pearson, and Jones. The expulsion had no teeth, I guess you'd say. It just was a lot of time wasted and a lot of words spoken and grander divisions between the Democrats and the Republicans here in the state of Tennessee. And I hate that. Sexton goes on to say that while he gets that people are angry because Jones looks like a martyr because he was let back in
some people's eyes. But what I can tell you too, though, is the exact same thing you talked about would have been the same under censure. It would have been the same argument. It would have been, they wouldn't have been expelled, but it was, we didn't get to exercise our freedom of speech. We did something that we thought we needed to do, and they censured us for the exact same reason.
Okay, but you know what? You would have saved people a lot of time. The censure and the expulsion at this point are one and the same, just different names. Same consequence, just different names. One of the things brought up is that the media clearly siding with Pearson and Jones. The reputation of our state is at this moment in the, you know what, in the pooper. We've been portrayed as being run by a bunch of white supremacists. We've been portrayed as racist. And we handed them the narrative, in my opinion. Cameron, again, talking to Brian Wilson yesterday on the drive.
But what I can tell you is we've been hearing from a lot of people back home and in districts when members went back this last weekend, it wasn't to the level that you're talking about. And so what members are talking about is it outside the state? Is it in the Beltway here in Nashville? You know, who are the people who are talking to us from outside the state? I mean, I know that there's our members who are getting hate messages from people from other states who are very much progressives when you look them up. Unfortunately for us, it seems like that the Republicans and conservatives weren't as vocal about this as with the progressives, and they were very well organized, and they have delivered a message that's out there.
Yeah, and a message that people are repeating over and over and over again. But let me say this, though. Here at home, as a conservative, but as someone who lives in Davidson County, which is very blue, right? Very liberal, very Democrat in nature, all of that. Let me say this. It bothered me when there was a night, a candlelight vigil downtown, and I didn't see Governor Lee. For the victims of the Covenant shooting, our city is in mourning. I didn't see Governor Lee. I didn't see Cameron Sexton. I didn't see other lawmakers. I didn't see Andy Ogles. I didn't see, anybody like that. They're uniting with Jill Biden, Mayor Cooper, Heidi Campbell, who's a state senator, others from the legislature that represent Davidson County. That would have been a great time for everyone to stand together and say, we are mourning the loss of 6 innocent people. So I didn't see that, and that was very disappointing for me. Where were they? I don't think it would have made it political. Were they asked to stay away so it wouldn't become political? I mean, again, I think that would have been an opportunity to say, we may have our differences from a political standpoint, but when it comes to human lives, we all agree that what happened at Covenant School should not have happened. That was an opportunity for our community. And we failed. So I'm disappointed right now. I am disappointed. And it bugs me that now I'm being portrayed as a racist, which is so far from the truth. And that people believe it. It is 10:51. I am Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Secret military documents leaked to the internet reveal the location of some U.S. Special Forces, and we finally heard from the Defense Secretary about all that. Inflation is slowing down, but some prices are heading back up. These stories and more at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. By the way, let me ask you and Mac a question real quick, if I may.
All right.
Have y'all heard about Walmart removing an offensive shirt recently that basically there was a hidden curse word in it? Have y'all heard about this?
No. I have
There was
not.
some
No.
complaints. All right. Now, I have to be careful here because this is a little risque. But as the New York Post put it, they put the swear in sportswear. It was a shirt that was promoting kind of some woke ideas, if you will, like recycling. I say that. It's not necessarily woke. Woke-ish. Like reusing things, renew things, that sort of thing. So the letter on the shirt is R-E, real big, R-E, right? Renew, and then the words are cycle, so recycle, then use, reuse. New is under there, renew. And then think, rethink. So you've got the big letters, and then you've got those other words I told you, small, but in a row underneath, right? There's a curse word in there that if you look at the shirt,
Yeah, I'm spelling
you're
it
like,
out.
who thought of this? Who thought this was a good idea? And so, yeah, they've had to take these $5 shirts off the racks at Walmart.
Come on, guys.
Because it, just doesn't look very nice.
One guffawed viewer said, finally, the perfect shirt.
Well, see, there's something within me that goes, I kind of want to buy that shirt now. Anyway, just thought I'm going to post this on my socials so people can see for themselves. It's certainly interesting, to say the least. All right, more to come. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$11 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And now that delay is up to 36 minutes in Rutherford County. You've got one lane of traffic open only on 24 eastbound in Murfreesboro due to construction. Secret military documents leaked to the internet reveal the location of some U.S. Special Forces in Ukraine. Fox News says National Security Advisor John Kirby confirms a small number of U.S. Special Forces are indeed in Ukraine, but not to fight Russia. Kirby says they're at the U.S. Embassy to account for all of the material he says going in and out of Ukraine. And we finally heard from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin about all these documents.
The Biden administration now trying to contain the fallout as it races to find out how dozens of apparently classified Pentagon documents were leaked and posted on the internet.
We take this very seriously.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin speaking out for the first time, admitting they don't know how many documents are still out there.
Money news, inflation slowing down. Dave Packer with the March readout.
Cheaper gas and food prices helped push March inflation numbers lower. The Consumer Price Index showing prices were up 5% from the same month last year, the smallest rise in nearly 2 years. Compared to February, prices were up just 0.1%. Wage growth also slowing steadily in the past year, but the Federal Reserve is looking for a more significant drop in prices, and absent that is likely to stay on track to raise interest rates further.
Later today in Tennessee, the Board of Commission in Shelby County set to vote about 1:30 to fill the State House seat of Justin Pearson, one of two lawmakers expelled for breaking decorum by leading a bullhorn rally against guns on the House floor. Fellow ousted Democrat Justin Jones was reappointed by the Metro Nashville Council on Monday. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
All right, it is 11:04. I am Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being with us today on this gorgeous Wednesday morning. The afternoon looks like it's going to be fantastic. I love days like this. I love being able to get the vitamin D and whatnot. Yes, yes. And I'm a real redhead. I am, if you can see me on the Super Talk TV, I mean, I'm very pale. I am pale-faced. Very, very much so. But I do like a little bit of that vitamin D out there. I'm not going to sit out there and fry, but I'm certainly going to get some vitamin D today. It's gorgeous. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Now, let's go to our next topic.
Go to what? What were you?
I don't know. It's got a little tongue-tied there. I'm going to call this trans du jour, because there are several trans stories that are out there today. The big one happened to be last night in Franklin, no less. And it was, I guess, the Franklin, was it the city council or it was the Franklin county? It wasn't Williamson County, so it must have been the city. So they were looking to approve or disapprove a permit from the Franklin Pride people. I don't know. Do you know what Franklin Pride is? There's a lot of people that may not have a clue what Franklin Pride is. You would think it would be, oh, I'm proud of my city, so let's have a party. It is not. Franklin Pride is about LGBTQ pride, right? And so these groups try to have a parade once a year. They've been doing this for quite some time. And this was to approve or disapprove of the permit for this parade, if you will, or this gathering where there would be 300 to 400 people. No, there would be more than that, I would think. There's some saying 300 or 400 people. I think there's more than that goes to this pride thing. But what the problem was is that you had a city council with a lot of citizens showing up, maybe with misinformation, maybe misinformed. I don't know, but it got contentious last night. And one attendee said, quote, "We all know the eyes of the world are waiting to see what you decide," speaking to the Franklin City Council, if you will. "Will Franklin continue to be a community of welcome or forever be known as a city of discrimination?" Now, this is an attendee speaking to the to the city council. And I'm going to make this statement. Only people in Williamson County were watching what was happening in Franklin last night. I don't think the eyes of the world were on you. So let's just put it in perspective for just a second. But I do find it interesting because I think, truthfully, there's been some misinformation. And so I'm going to state, I may get into a little bit of trouble with some of my conservative friends, but truth of the matter is LGBTQ people have a right to protest. They have a right to parade. They have a right to get licenses to have a parade. They have the right to do that. The only reason why any kind of pride parade, in my opinion, should be disqualified is if the parade is inappropriate or lewd. Maybe that would be a better word. Lewd and gross and sexual in nature. There's documented evidence at pride parades across the country where people get a little too salacious, where you have people with, we're adults here, right? Sex toys that have been added to their bodies. I guess that would be a way to put it. Prosthetics, but in a sexual nature. Fake genitalia. That's about as far as I'm going to go on their bodies. And it's just, and they're out there being gross. And it's inappropriate for children. Has that happened in Franklin? I personally have seen no evidence that has happened in Franklin, but you had a lot of people show up last night very fearful that that's what these parades are all about. And they're not always all about, I guess, is the statement that I want to say. And you have a lot of people that live in Franklin and Williamson County who are of the LGBTQ plus whatever ilk that just want to celebrate. And I have no problem with that. Go celebrate. And here's the thing, too. You don't have to take your children to these parades, right? Or to these events that may happen at a park. You don't have to take them. And if you don't approve of the lifestyle, you don't have to go. As long as it's not salacious in nature, sexually explicit, all of those things, then have at it. And I know a lot of people were concerned. So there was a vote. The city council basically voted 4-4, and it looks like the mayor was actually the tie-breaking vote. Mayor Ken Moore voted in favor of approving the festival. He said this: I consider that I'm giving you a lifeline for this event. And here's the short line of it now. I'm going to work to make sure if you violate the trust that we're placing in you right now, he's talking to the Franklin Pride organization, I will work as hard as I work every single day to make sure that event never happens in Franklin again. How about that? Yeah, so it looks like it's supposed to happen at Harlansdale Farm at, on June the 3rd. There was also a community decency resolution tied to the Pride Festival, but that was deferred during the meeting to May. So they're going to put that little contingency on it that it has to be decent. And it's my understanding from the Franklin Pride people that they aren't planning on any drag shows during this event. That may change, I don't know. But that's the threat from Ken Moore, Mayor Ken Moore of Franklin, Tennessee. It got contentious. There were people really angry last night on both sides of the aisle. Emotions ran very, very high. Boy, I think we all need a good Xanax for the next couple of weeks to just kind of chill out. Don't you? Chill out, people. Well, there's that. Now let's go to, let me find this city. Florida, in fact, in Tallahassee. The state legislature is debating a bill that it's a bathroom bill. All right. The legislation would open the door for any person 18 years or older to be charged with a second-degree misdemeanor if they enter a restroom or changing facility designated for a person that isn't the sex that they are assigned at birth, and refuse to immediately depart when asked by someone else to do so. So this is what they're discussing. It also requires local school districts to craft code of conduct rules to discipline students who do the same. So if you go into a bathroom, if I'm a girl, I go into the boys' bathroom and there's a dude in there saying, get out. And I go, no, I got to pee. I'm not leaving. You know, I have a right to be here. I could get in trouble. It'd be a misdemeanor there, second-degree misdemeanor. Well, in the course of that legislation, there were transgender people who testified in this committee that is debating this bathroom bill. It's a misdemeanor offense for someone to use the bathroom that doesn't align with the sex they were born with. And I guess there was a representative there, his older representative, his name is Webster Barnaby, Republican. And his reaction to some of the transgender people and LGBTQ advocates who were opposing the measure, his response was interesting. Now, he's apologized for some of the things he said, but I want you to listen to what he said. And I got it. Well, I'm going to wait and comment after. I want you to hear what he said yesterday. I think it was yesterday or Monday. Waiting. Okay, hold on.
To all the folks that are in the audience that consider themselves gender dysphoria, cis, I don't know what all that means. I really don't know what all that means.
By the way, can I say I agree with that? I don't know what all that means either. If someone, there's been people on Twitter calling me, you cis, blah, 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 and I'm going, what does that mean? Was that an insult? I don't know. Anyway, I'm with you, brother. Let's continue. He says, I don't know what all that means. Cis, all you that are here.
I'm looking at society today, and it's like I'm watching an X-Men movie with people that, when you watch the X-Men movies for Marvel Comics, it's like we have mutants living among us on planet Earth. There is so much darkness in our world today, so much evil in our world today, and so many people who are afraid to address the evil, the dysphoria, the dysfunction. I'm not afraid to address the dysphoria or the dysfunction. The Lord rebuke you, Satan, and all of your demons and all of your imps who come and parade before us. That's right, I called you demons and imps who come and parade before us and pretend that you are part of this world.
Oh, okay. There you go. Some people were quite upset with that. In this article that I have in front of me, Politico, the author of the writer says his name is, of course, Barnaby, Representative Barnaby. He's 63 years old, and they write it this way, who identifies as Christian. Okay. He's originally from England, believe it or not. He moved to Florida in 1991, and he was elected to the House in 2020. And he's just going, I am just, what I see before me are mutants. I don't understand what I'm looking at here. There's something wrong in this world. And then he went on to call them demons and whatnot. And he did apologize later for calling them demons. I don't know that he apologized for the mutant comment, but he certainly apologized for calling them demons. He said, that's right, I called you demons and imps who come and parade before us and pretend that you are part of this world. You are not part of this world, he said later. Democrats were going, I'm a little thrown off by this comment, but at any rate, the bill did pass out of the House in Florida, and now it's going to go, I think, to the House floor. I'm sorry, it passed out of committee, a House committee. Now it's going to go to the House floor. It has already passed in the Senate, so if it passes in the House, and it probably will, then it will become law, and it'll be a misdemeanor offense if you go into a bathroom that doesn't match your sex at birth, and you're asked to leave and you don't leave, then you could get in trouble. And the world has gone crazy, y'all. We live in the upside down. It is 11:18.
Wait, we have a, sorry, I just have to, before you get off this and we get away from the super texts.
Go ahead. What do you see on the super text line?
This is Brian who says, Pamela, if you entered a men's room, would you be charged with a misdemeanor?
Good question. I don't miss See, now you're laughing.
I'm sorry.
Because you're still, that's a dude joke. I'm going,
right. That was selfish of me.
Boys, boo, hiss, boo.
I'm sorry.
It's not selfish. It's cute. It's funny. And yes, I am missing the wiener. It is 11:19. I am Pamela Furr on WTN.
U.S. Special Forces locations in these leaked military documents. We'll tell you about that coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you very much. Very, very scary, in my opinion, the information that's coming out in these leaked documents. And the question is, when did they leak and who leaked them, right? They first started surfacing, I think, in January, right? In some of these background places I don't ever go. Maybe even dark web places. I don't know. It's a little scary to me, and the consequences are, well, whoever leaked it obviously needs to face the rest of their lives in prison, whoever leaked it. If they're an American, if they were stolen documents, that's another story altogether, but we need to get to the bottom of it. I think John Kirby said the other day, a spokesperson, for the Department of Justice, isn't he, or the Department of Defense? He said the other day, we don't need to be talking about this. Please don't put this as your headline news. And I'm thinking, you're nuts. You're crazy. We have to talk about this because obviously there's a major, major problem, and it has happened under the Biden administration watch. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. All right, it is 11:25-ish. It's about to turn 11:25. So in our next segment, after the news at 11:35, I want to open up the phone lines because I know you guys have a lot to say about what has happened in the last couple of days here in the state of Tennessee, more specifically with the executive order that the governor has handed down that would make it what he believes is more efficient in reporting information from the courts when it comes to mental health issues and people who have had their guns removed from them, and getting that information to the TBI so that the TBI then has it on record if somebody tries to do a background check because they're trying to buy a weapon. The TBI would have the information that, no, we can't grant you that permit or whatever to get the gun because you've had some mental health issues or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing all of that. And so I want your comment on that. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. You can super text as well, but I will be taking your phone calls. Plus the proposal of a more enhanced order of protection law that would allow people to turn in those who they are not involved with domestically, right? They're not dating, they're not sleeping with, they're not married to, they're not the cousin of, brother, sister, they don't live with. Broadly opening up that order of protection provision in the law that could possibly separate a gun owner from their weapons if people think that gun owner is going to cause harm to themselves or to others. I have a real problem with that. If you're talking about opening it wide, I think people are going to abuse that. They abuse the laws that we already have. And our police force is inundated with individuals who pick up the phone, call 911, and want the police to intervene to solve problems, to solve arguments, to all of those things. So they're already doing that and misusing laws that are on the books that were supposed to be there to help mostly women who are being abused in relationships and being threatened by their husband or partner, especially if they had a gun. These laws were on the books to help them. And what you have found is that other people are abusing those laws. So the governor wants to open that up, and he's asking lawmakers to look at that. Well, obviously, that's a red flag law. He's just not calling it a red flag law, right? Or red flag legislation. He's just not calling it a red flag legislation. And what, in research I've done, in experts I've spoken to, red flag laws that are on the books still wouldn't have prevented the shootings that have happened in some of these states that had red flag laws. Let's say if you're putting it on the books now, hoping that it could have prevented what happened at Covenant School, I don't know that it could have. A parent didn't call law enforcement and say, my daughter has weapons and she's mentally unstable. Apparently, whoever she was going through treatment with, whether it was a counselor, a therapist, psychologist, we don't know because we haven't seen the manifest, by the way. But no one called law enforcement to say we have concerns, to my knowledge. So would have any of this applied in this case? Anything that Governor Lee is proposing, could it have applied with the Covenant School? We don't know. I don't know that it would have. So there's that topic. And then, of course, we have the topic of our leadership and the disappointment that I feel in our Republican leadership in the House of Representatives and the dog and pony show that's been happening, the circus that's been happening during this legislative session. I bet you, if I was the betting kind, I would say Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is now a big fan of Justin Jones, a real big fan of Gloria Johnson these days, don't you think? Because it took all the attention off of that little scandal going on in the state Senate this session. It's taken it and moved it all the way over to the House. So he's just going, yes, you know. I bet he's got a thumbs up emoji ready to go and send, you know.
Instagram what? What?
Right, exactly. All right, more to come. It is 11:30. I am Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. That is a 30-minute delay now if you're 24 eastbound in Murfreesboro. Only one lane due to construction. And right now in our nation's capital,
EPA is proposing the strongest ever federal pollution technology standards for both cars and trucks.
EPA Administrator Michael Regan says it's a huge step in phasing out the use of combustion engine and estimates more than half of all vehicle sales will be electric by model year 2032. Fox News says White House National Security Advisor John Kirby confirms what leaked military documents show. There are U.S. Special Forces at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, but Kirby says they're not there to fight Russia. He says they are there to help work on accountability of the material that is going in and out of Ukraine. Inflation heading in the right direction, however, prices still high.
Some of the biggest price increases over the past year have been in airfares, up 18%, electricity up 10%, groceries and rent also higher, especially for some of those staples like milk, cereal, and butter. Now gas prices, though, are ticking up again after months of relief.
Elizabeth Schulze reporting, and the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 11:35. I am Pamela Furr. Thank you for being with us today. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. 615-737-9986. If you want to give us a call, I am opening up the phone lines now. So the floor, as they say, is yours. Because we've had a lot of stuff we've been dealing with in the last couple of days. So if you would like to express yourself, if I may quote Madonna, express yourself. I don't remember the rest of the words. I just remember that. I don't remember. It's been a
Just
while.
that part.
Just that part. You're more than welcome to do so. 615-737-9986. Meanwhile, there are 4 months until the first Republican presidential primary debate. Can you believe that? 4 months away until the crazy begins and we start looking at our Republican candidates for president of the United States. It's still unclear who's going to be on stage. I believe, what was it? Did we have 270 candidates in 2016? Something like that. So what was so crazy about those debates is that one person would answer a question, and then you'd go down the line and let them all answer the question, and then you've run out of time. So, I mean, it just was silly in my opinion. Anyway, the RNC announced today that Fox News is the host of the first debate of the 2024 election cycle, and it's going to take place in Milwaukee in August. And obviously, it's going to coincide with the RNC's summer meeting. Not clear what perimeters will need to be met for the candidates to reach the debate stage. But there are whispers that the RNC might require candidates to sign a commitment to support the eventual nominee if they want to participate. So that is an interesting development. It could pose a problem for Donald Trump, who is unlikely to throw his weight behind any 2024 nominee who isn't him. Let's just be honest. No other debates have been sanctioned at this point, and the final criteria for the first debate has not been decided. That's from Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. And that's been, the big story today on the possible debate coming up in August. All right, 11:38, 615-737-9986. Let's talk to, is it Dee Dee? Is your name Dee Dee? From Madison?
Betty.
Hi,
Pam. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Well, I'm so happy I get to talk with you because I am a rebel.
You're a rebel?
Yeah, that's
nice.
Probably the last time I talked to you.
Gotcha.
That's been a while.
All right. Well, what's your comment today, Betty?
Well, I want to talk about what happened at our Senate. I want to say they should have thought Metro is definitely a Democratic city.
Right.
The ones that connected. So they should have known that Metro was going to stick their 2 cents worth in.
Well, of course. Well, because Justin Jones represents part of Metro Nashville anyway. I mean, he represents. Right. So, of course, they were going to stick their nose in.
And then I would like to say if you were going to expel one, you should have expelled them all because this has turned out to be a can of worms now.
Isn't that the truth? They have just opened
up a big can of worms.
Yes, ma'am.
For everybody, and we just... now we got to eat crow, probably.
All right, Betty, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. You have a fantastic rest of the day. It is a gorgeous day to do so. All right, let's see. If you can turn that down just a little bit there. I don't know your name. It starts with an H, maybe? Is it? I don't know your name. But if you can hear me talking, I'm talking to you. Because Mac doesn't know how to spell your name either. Sir, are you there? Can you hear me, sir?
Are you talking to me?
I am. What is your name?
They call me Ogre.
Ogre?
Yes, ma'am.
Ogre. Okay. Mac, you don't spell ogre with an H, by the way.
I thought he was saying hunger. I was going, what?
He put down hunger. All right. Ogre, go ahead. Ogre. That is a bizarre name, but go ahead.
My thoughts are simple. Nobody's mentioned anything of the fact that this red flag law is going to cause problems for people that need mental health, and they're not going to want to come forward for fear of what they're going to lose.
Well, I mean, that's another consequence, isn't it?
Absolutely.
They're not going to. They may not be honest with their people if they think those people are going to turn them into law enforcement.
Absolutely, and the consequences of that is people aren't going to go get help, and they're going to get worse.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let me say this to you, Ogre, and thank you very much for the phone call. Let me say this. I do know, though, that with any medical appointment, when someone with mental health issues goes in to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, you do sign documentation. I know this from experience. Look, and there's nothing to be ashamed of if you go and get help for any mental issues you may have. I am very open about my struggle with anxiety. I think I've got it pretty much under control. I'm knocking on wood, I need some salt to throw behind my back, all the things. I have it under control for the most part, but there was a time in my life when I was taking some medication to help me with my anxiety issues to kind of take the edge off. I've learned now that there are natural ways that you can do that, so you're not on any kind of medication, and, taking time out from reading the news all day or, listening to crazy friends who want to just complain and moan all the time about what's happening. Take a break from all of that, take some deep breaths, enjoy God's green earth, anyway, all the things. But I have spoken to counselors and therapists to learn some of those skills to how to keep my anxiety at bay. And when you do that, you sign documents. There's HIPAA laws, yes. And you sign those documents. You don't want your information shared with anybody unless it's a medical doctor, because there's something medical that needs to happen that your therapist or psychologist has just recommended, or even a psychiatrist. So you sign that documentation about the HIPAA laws if they've been explained to you. But there's also a document that says if you, and I'm not quoting it word for word, but something to the effect of, if you are posing a threat to yourself or to others, we have an obligation to take measures necessary, which could include contacting law enforcement. So even now, you signed that documentation. So you are aware that could happen. Even now. 737-9986 is the telephone number. Let's go to Steve in Fayetteville. Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Hey, great. I love your show. I'm so glad you're there.
Thank you.
You're the first person that actually said something about, well, guess what? We're going to get rid of everybody's guns. We're still going to have guns because criminals will get guns. Even not gang people will get guns. You can get a card to evacuate people so they can't get a license for a gun. If they're still crazy and want to get rid of somebody or some institution, they're going to get a gun.
It's not difficult to buy a gun illegally. It is not difficult. Thank you, Steve, for your phone call. That's just reality. That's just the truth. And that's what I try to tell you is the truth. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Greg, who's in Nashville. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Pamela. I love it when you're on the show.
Thank you.
I'm just retired. I'm a 25-year veteran of the police department here in Nashville and spent a lot of that time as a domestic violence investigator.
Oh, wow.
I just wanted to touch on a couple of things real quick about the firearms involved. If we have, let's say you and I, domestic situation, bad things happen, you get an order of protection, whether it's ex parte or waiting for
whatever.
The final order.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Me as the respondent or as the suspect, you would say, I would have to sign a document that says that I will give my guns to somebody who's not prohibited of having them. Please don't come and get your guns. That's not how it works. So basically have to promise that they will let somebody else hold on to these guns while they're under that order.
Gotcha.
Doesn't
But
make sense.
I mean, but
No.
yeah. But you can sign that document all day. That doesn't mean you're going to turn them over.
Well, and that's exactly. And the other thing I just wanted to hit on real quick is, again, we're in a domestic situation.
Sure.
Things get bad. I get mad for whatever reason. I take my Colt 45 pistol, threaten you with it. You call the police. Police show up. They decide you're credible, make the arrest. Now, what happens after that? Only the gun that was used in the incident is seized. Doesn't matter if you got 50 other guns in the house. Just the one that was used in the incident can be seized.
Interesting.
So the police aren't going to take all your guns and all that.
Well, I hope I wasn't perpetuating the idea that the police are coming to get your guns.
No, nothing like that. It's
Okay.
Just a couple of small things like that I heard, and I thought, I don't want people thinking that, well, if I do this, they're going to go get all the guns.
They're gonna come get your guns. Let me ask you this while I have you on the phone. I know I'm correct about this, but would you say the majority of the calls that you would get that were domestic were just fights that could have been solved had clearer heads prevailed? They weren't really truly domestic violence. I would say
Absolutely.
I would go 70% BS and 30% were the real true blue deal. Would that be
Absolutely.
accurate? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it certainly is. And when I was in the domestic violence investigation unit, we would average, I want to say yearly, over 30,000 cases that would come through this office.
30,000.
And
Holy smokes.
And it goes from domestic homicide, aggravated assault, down to somebody arguing because they won't give them their keys back.
Right, right.
Things like that.
He won't get off my porch. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
See somebody new.
Yeah.
Mad about it.
Yep. All right, Greg, thank you so much for your phone call. Thank you for your service and happy retirement.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Right.
Take care.
You're welcome. Have a good day. All right, 11:47. Let's do this, Mac. Let's go ahead and take a break here, and we'll finish up with maybe a few phone calls, maybe. And I did see Matt Murphy down the hall. He may come in, pop his head in, and tell us what's coming up on the Matt Murphy Show. So stick around. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, you have a warm light. Wait a minute. How do you change it to the warm? I want to be warm.
A little, the one right in the middle there. See?
No.
See? Right in the center.
Center? There we go.
There you go.
All right.
Look at there.
So I know this. We're on the radio. I don't know what this looks
like. We're on the TV too.
But we're also on the TV, so I just changed my lighting. So maybe it's not so bright. Maybe it looks a little warmer. It doesn't really matter.
Well, Pamela, you shine a light that's bright enough.
Aw. Now, was that not the sweetest thing
That's
ever?
so sweet. He's such a sucker.
Wow.
That's so awful.
All right, so we were kind of talking behind the scenes. I got to tell you, I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people. There's a lot of disappointment in our leadership in the State House for sure, the Senate too, but that got, put by the wayside. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally's like, yay, Justin Jones, yay, Gloria Johnson, yay.
Nobody's talking about McNally now, huh?
Yay, Justin Pearson. Of course he's doing all that. He's probably very thankful, but I'm very disappointed in our Republican leadership, and I gave all the reasons earlier, but I was telling you this one thing I wanted to talk about today and didn't get a chance. Hopefully I can do it tomorrow. But, the Democrats and there are few of them in the State House, may have a point that they are not allowed to let their voices be heard. And they're supposed to be the representing the people of their district. So if they go to committee to introduce or even debate or talk about bills and they're not allowed to do that, that is a problem.
Well, it's a pressure cooker, right?
Yeah.
And eventually it boils over. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's ethical. I'm not saying it's within the rules, but it is a reality. We watch, something that, and I'll name him. I don't think you would mind me doing that. Representative Scott Sapicki, when he was on with me during a break, he mentioned this, and I meant to bring it up during the show, and I'm going to bring it up today. He said that there was a time in the House of Representatives where these representatives had what was called members' privilege, where every day where they meet, they do the welcome and the announcements and they welcome people in the gallery or whatever. And then after that, they have this time where any member of the body can stand up and for 2 minutes talk about anything they want.
Kind of like a point of personal privilege, please. Yeah.
So would this not be a good opportunity to let the super minority vent their spleen about whatever it is they want to talk about, and then you move on to the day's business?
Right.
And if they complain, say, hold on a second. You had a chance to get that on the record during your member's privilege.
Right. Why don't they do that? It's my understanding that perhaps they used to.
Yes.
Maybe?
And I need some clarity. I'm going to send out a text to find out some clarity as to who ended that. I don't believe that it was Speaker of the House Sexton. I think it ended under, you said it, Cassida.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try to figure that out, but because that seems like a reasonable position to have moving forward. Now, all of this has just been such a
cluster.
It's been a cluster. It's been a
circus, a cluster, all the words. And again, I don't agree with liberal ideology, but if I believe in the Constitution and the way the governments are set up, they are supposed to represent their people. And if they're not allowed to do that, that's a problem. I don't care if they are on the other side of the aisle. That is a problem.
Well, we should give them a couple of minutes every day to vent their nonsense
and then
move on to the adult business, right? Yeah, exactly. That's right.
The goodness, the good things that Tennessee can do for its people. All right, Matt Murphy coming up next. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.